because things are difficult, you actually have a chance to succeed. Because if it was easy, everybody would be doing it and nobody would be successful. So when people come and say, Melitta, this is so hard. You just gave me something to do and it's so difficult. I say to them, exactly. Because if it wasn't difficult, it would not be worth doing. Everybody that's your competition has quit because it's hard. You're the only person left standing.
Hello and welcome to the Art of Value Whispering podcast. I'm your host, Melitta Campbell, business coach, value whisperer, and advocate for introverted female experts who want to build a business that feels natural, authentic, and impactful. Over the summer, here on the show, I'm hosting the Brilliant Business Book Festival, where I'm speaking with the authors of some of my favorite business books and of those books I wish I'd read sooner. Today's guest is John Lee Dumas, or JLD, host of the award-winning Entrepreneurs on Fire podcast and author of The Common Path to Uncommon Success, a roadmap to financial freedom and fulfillment. I heard of JLD in the early days of his podcast, and I was fortunate to be gifted a copy of his book around 3 years ago, I think it was. His book brilliantly and simply maps out the 17 steps that John knows leads to success, not just because he's seen the patterns from the interviews on his own podcast, but because he's put it into practice himself and seen the results. As well as the straightforward structure and practical nature of this book, I really loved his well of knowledge at the back of the book. These are short nuggets of advice and inspiration that you can dip into anytime you need a motivation boost. And somehow, whenever I dip in, I just seem to happen across the perfect insight for that moment in my business. And it was a real pleasure to speak with John in person. And thanks to his straight talking nature, you're about to gain a lot of insight that you can use to create and accelerate your own success. It won't always be easy, but when you follow John's 17 steps, it will always be worth it. And don't forget, you can head to melittacampbell.com/podcast to use the free AI coach to turn your current challenges into practical actions based on the knowledge that John shares in this episode. It's the fastest way to turn your insight into action that grows your business. Go to my website, click on podcast, and navigate to this episode and click on the AI coach link in the show notes. Meantime, let's meet John. So John, it's amazing to have you with us on the show today.
Melitta, it is lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
And you were actually one of the first people I reached out to, because when I decided to do this business book festival, I was like, I loved the way you broke down success in your 12 steps based on real interviews with, how many is it now? It's more than 3,000.
Now it's 4,681.
Wow. That's a very Swiss answer. But yeah, you start to see patterns. And in my show, the first sort of 190 episodes, I just did interviews with women about, well, what does it take for a woman to succeed in business? And you start to see those patterns. So I really appreciate that you took the time to put all of that together. And there are so many parallels, we were just saying before we came on, between what you break down here and how you've gone about it to what I see as the issues for my audience, the more introverted female business owners. So I am excited to dive into that. And early on in the book, and it's a quote that I really love from Albert Einstein, where he's talking about, you don't want to try and be a successful person, but a person that adds value. And, value whispering is all about knowing what your value is that you can bring to the world and then whispering that through everything you do. So I was like, I love this quote. So much alignment, but we have a short time today, so I'd love to tap into your experience. And you started your podcast from scratch. And from scratch, it wasn't, you've been running a business, you've been around business people for a long time, and you've got some kind of media background. You were in the army, you tried a few different jobs out, and then you fell in love with podcasts, but thought there's just not enough of them for your appetite for learning. So you created your own, and it's a daily podcast. And I think it's still the only daily podcast around business. So how did you get started with that? How did you get the courage to not just start, but to interview that volume of experts?
Well, the first thing I did was I started off with a big idea. And that big idea was I really love this platform, this medium called podcasting. It just makes sense to me. I get it. I love it. I consume it as a consumer. Man, I would love to be involved somehow. Like, I would love to be involved in this vertical, in this industry. But how do I do that? Because unlike you said, I actually thought there were plenty of podcasts, but there wasn't the type of podcast that I really was wanting there to be. That's a big difference.
Mm.
And so what I did was I said, hey, I'm going to uncover a niche within my big idea of podcasting that's underserved, that's being ignored for some reason. And I'm going to go all in on that. So I knew the shows that I loved were podcasts. Let's go a little further down there, a little niche below business podcasts. Let's go a niche below that. Interview podcasts of business owners. Okay, that's quite a few niches down. And there's like 9 shows, and this was back in 2012, that are interviewing entrepreneurs. Cool. But I don't want to be the 10th best show when I start. So, what are they not doing that I can do differently? Well, they're all doing once a week shows. And that's actually my biggest complaint about their shows is that I listen to one episode on a run on a Monday. I've got to wait 7 more days for the next show to come out. And that show's 30 minutes long. And like I've been sitting on my hands all week waiting for the next show when I'm running, every single day, hitting the gym, driving to work, doing all these things where I want to be consuming content of interviews of successful entrepreneurs. I wanted that content and I knew there must be other people as well. So I said, hey, what if I did 2 per week, twice the amount as they did? And that sounded cool, but it kind of led me down a rabbit hole, long story short. And I said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do a daily show, 7 days a week. And guess what? It's going to be hard, but that's why it has a chance to succeed. It's because things are hard, because things are difficult, you actually have a chance to succeed. Because if it was easy, everybody would be doing it and nobody would be successful. So when people come and say, Melitta, this is so hard. You just gave me something to do and it's so difficult. I say to them, exactly. Because if it wasn't difficult, it would not be worth doing. Everybody that's your competition has quit because it's hard. You're the only person left standing. 13 years later, my business has been making 7 figures of net profit a year for 12 years. Yet I still have no competition because people are afraid of the hard work. They can't do it. They can't put in the effort that I put in to build this type of business. Just like, by the way, I can't put in the type of effort that other people have put in to build their type of business because I don't want to. And I'm not excited about it, but I'm excited about this. So what is the thing that you can go all in on? And that's why when people have read my book like you, thank you, it's called The Common Path to Uncommon Success. It could be summed up in one sentence. Become the number one solution to a real problem in a growing industry. If you do that, you will win, period.
Yeah, and you said there you have to put in the effort and do the difficult thing. And I get that. But what I'm seeing in what you just said is it's not just a difficult thing, but it really aligned to your vision and your passion. You really cared about this. You really wanted to make it happen. Do you think that's an essential ingredient?
Absolutely. There has to be passion, there has to be excitement, but there also on the other side of that,
Mhm.
there has to be skill, there has to be knowledge, there has to be value that you're giving to that equation. You need the combination of both. You just have the excitement and the passion, which a lot of people, that's their only focus. That's a hobby. Because if you're not actually also adding value to the world, nobody's going to care. And by the way, if it's just a hobby, nobody should care. Nobody needs to care. Keep doing that thing if it makes you happy, but don't think you're going to make money or a business out of it. But if you have skills, knowledge, and value to give to the world, but you only have that, you're going to get bored and you're going to quit because there's no passion there. That's why you need the combination of both. And once you have that zone of fire in the middle, then you win. Then you have a chance. Then you put your nose down and you put in the reps and you outwork everybody who even dreams of being in your bubble of competition. You destroy them, they give up, you win.
So how do you do that? How do you work in this zone of fire and not burn out in the process? Because you're working hard, but I guess you've got to have some structure, some systems to enable you to maintain that over time. Because I guess as well, you can be really passionate, but we all have a limit as to how far we can go. Did you build some systems that helped you in that process?
I call it batching like a baller. If I had to get up every day and know that I had one interview, and that's not a lot, but if I had to get up every day for the past 13 years and know that I had to do one interview, I would have probably burned out. I mean, that's less than an hour of total time, blah, 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 blah. But there's days I would just not feel like doing it. And that would eventually burn me out. But instead, I said, you know what? One day per week, I'm going to create a schedule, lock in my calendar of 7 interviews back to back. And that's my Super Bowl. That's my world championship. I'm going to wake up every day. I don't care if I want to be a little baby and cry all day. I'm going to get over it. And that day is going to be the day that I produce 7 amazing interviews for Entrepreneurs on Fire. And if I want to be a little baby and curl up in a ball and cry all day, I can do that the other 6 days per week. And some days I do. Some days I don't feel like doing anything and I don't do anything. But because of my schedule, I'm able to do that. So every Thursday, you can't get a hold of me. You can't talk to me. The door is shut. And I do 7 amazing interviews, and I've been doing that for 13 years. So I batch my work. So you need to find the rhythm that works for you. One of my mentees has finally found her rhythm. She's been trying to write a book for years. 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. has become her sacred time. For some people, that would never work, and that's fine. For her, it does. And now that time is sacred and she's going to win because of it. So you need to find your sacred time, batch like a baller, and you need to be as committed to your time off as you are to your time on because of that burnout you mentioned. So
Mm.
every morning, my alarm clock goes off at 6 a.m. and I'm out for a 3 mile walk in the sun, walking my dog, listening to a podcast or music or nature. And I do the exact same thing at 5 p.m. every single evening. That's my 10,000 steps, 5,000 in the morning, 5,000 in the evening. And that's just part of my starting the day, ending the day bookend. In the middle, I might work really hard for 1 hour. Some days I might work really hard for 3 hours. Some days I might not work at all. But every Thursday, we know what's happening. 7 interviews.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned that that's what works for you, but it's everyone needs to find their own rhythm and find that rhythm, the environment that supports your success. But not only that, put a boundary around it. Like, this is what I do. No, like, there is no questions asked. Nothing is going to get in the way of me doing this. And then the rest of the time you can relax and as you say,
Yep.
keep that balance because particularly for introverts, we don't have a problem being social, being outgoing, but we need to then rebalance and charge those batteries and prepare beforehand. So
Yep.
it's all finding what works for you.
And listen, there are some people that are watching right now and they're saying, I don't like boundaries. And I just say, have fun failing.
Yeah, harsh but true. So I want to come back to when you got started and you reached out to all of these entrepreneurs because I think a lot of women starting out in business, they're almost starting from below zero. They don't necessarily have a business background. They don't necessarily have anyone in their network who's built a business before or has any success advice or encouragement or support to offer. And they are waiting for permission a lot of the time. What was it that got you? Well, you had the passion and the drive, of course, but was there anything that you found particularly helpful in giving yourself that permission and having the courage to go and ask people to come on your show?
I can be really lazy. Like I can be a very lazy person. Like when I have nothing that's motivating me, nothing that I'm driving towards, like I am fine just laying down with a book or with a laptop and just doing nothing for hours at a time. So, when people are just like, you're just naturally a hard worker, I'm like, no, you're just trying to give yourself an excuse for not succeeding by pretending like I'm some magical hard worker that's just outworking everybody because it's just not true. What I did was I hired a mentor. a person who was in my field. Her name was Jamie Masters. She was and is a fantastic podcast host, and she was a fantastic mentor for me. I joined a mastermind of 10 other people. It was a paid mastermind, so I was held accountable. There was a leader of the mastermind and 10 people. And that mastermind met every week and they held me accountable. So I surrounded myself with the right people. So many people are surrounded by the wrong people. A lot of people that are watching this right now, they have two friends from high school they talk to every day. They have their mother who's always complaining about something. They have this person, that person in their life. Hey, I get it. And that's fine. If you want to have toxic, negative, pessimistic people in your life, that's totally your choice. But that is who you are as well, because you're an average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Fact. If you want to change that, if you want to hang out with positive, happy, successful, healthy people, that's going to become who you are as well. And I'm not saying your mother that's always complaining and nagging at you. I'm not saying to cut her out of your life. She just can't be in your top 5. And if you want to keep her in your top 5, that's sweet. That's kind. I'm sure you're being a good daughter. Have fun failing.
Yeah. Yeah. I talk about in my book, The Shy Girl's Guide to Networking, that having this support circle, and it could just be one person, but someone who gets your vision, is there for you, is really vital. But I think your point of finding that group of people that are going to lift you up is so essential as well.
Because
So
just having one person, there's a problem with that because there's going to be times where that person's not feeling up, that they're down as well. And if you guys ever sync up with that, neither one of you are going to be there to pull each other up. And it's not going to happen all the time. It's good to have that one person, but it's great to have 4 people, 5 people, because then you're all there. It's collective energy. It's going to be very rare that all 4 or 5 of you are going to be in the dumps at the same time. At least 1 or 2 of the people in that group are going to be able to lift the others, and then they'll be lifted up by the others when the tides have turned. So I really strongly recommend having at least 3, if not 4 people within your mastermind. I have a whole chapter about it in my book. You must meet once per week. You must meet for at least an hour. I have a whole structure around what that mastermind call should look like. And most people won't do it, and most people fail.
yeah, yeah. I've set up a few of those and they do peter out after a while, but then you realize, oh, that's the moment where you've actually outgrown that group anyway. And to start with the next group that you either create or join, or yeah, I think that's great advice. Talking of which, one of the first questions you ask on your own podcast is always like, what's a route to success or something you've noticed that other people aren't talking about or would perhaps disagree with? And you've heard it all over the thousands of episodes you've done. But I was wondering, is there anything that you realize that isn't talked about enough that you think, come on, guys, you've got to mention this thing?
That it's meant to be tough. It's meant to be really challenging. It's meant to be painful. What good comes in life without those things? Do you think you're going to get stronger at the gym lifting weights with no pain? Are you going to become a better runner without going out and pushing yourself? Are you going to become a better painter without having your hands ache because of how much you're painting? Are you going to become a better speaker without going numb trying to practice your crafts? Like none of those things happen without pain, without challenge, without difficulty. I mean, it's meant to be difficult. And guess what? People are so soft. Like they want to quit as soon as things become difficult. And guess what? That's great for me because that means all my competition quits. That's why they never do a daily podcast because they think it's too tough. Good. Quit.
Yeah.
Leaves me to be on top of the mountain alone. And that's why that should motivate people that are watching right now. When they hit that part, like, this is really tough, take a step back and say, wow, this is actually where all of my competition here right now around the world that are doing this thing, that are building this thing, I can just hear them quitting left and right because they're quitting. I'm
Yeah.
not going to quit now. That's going to motivate me to go even harder.
So true. And I hear a lot that people saying, well, it's this industry, it's oversaturated. But I've been in business 17 years now, and I've seen it time and time again. Not many people make it very far.
Well,
But
you
for
know
the
what's you
fact,
know what's oversaturated? What's oversaturated is being a pale, weak imitation of somebody else. That's what's oversaturated. People are like, John, is it too late to podcast? I'm like, it's too late to make a copy of my podcast, like to interview other entrepreneurs about business. Like, yeah, that ship has sailed. So don't become a pale, weak imitation of Entrepreneurs on Fire, of me. Become an amazing, genuine, true, authentic version of yourself by following that one sentence that I talked about, becoming the number one solution to a real problem in a growing industry. And the world is your oyster. Like there are people out there right now killing it talking about AI, and not just AI as a broad topic, but like a micro niche within the AI world. And they're dominating that niche and they're killing it because they're there first and they're winning. And it's out there. Like, what is your thing? Like, you can go conquer your own island. You just have to find it. I conquered the islands of the daily podcast interviewing entrepreneurs. And back when I conquered that island, nobody wanted that island, so it was unopposed. People really still don't want that island. Um, Once they found out that I dug a little into the sand of that island and discovered gold and created a 7-figure a year business, then it got kind of interesting and people wanted to come take over my island. Too late. I've built a moat. You're behind. I'm never going to give up my lead. I win. You lose if you try to copy me, but you can win and anything else that you might want to do that you're willing to dominate.
Yeah. And I think that's so common that people just see, oh, that's successful, I'm going to do that. And sometimes people are fearful of sharing their ideas because I think, well, what other people will copy me? But they couldn't. As you say, they're only ever going to be a pale copy of you. But I've loved everything. You've got the 17 rules in your common path to uncommon success. I'd love for everyone to dive into that over the summer and check out your podcast, of course, Entrepreneurs on Fire. John, thank you so much for your time today.
It was awesome hanging out. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Thanks. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you're coming away as inspired as I am to embrace the hard stuff. Lean into what makes you different and remember that real success is about becoming the number one solution to a real problem. If you enjoyed this episode, I highly recommend checking out John's book, The Common Path to Uncommon Success, and of course, tuning into Entrepreneurs on Fire for more daily insights. I'll link everything in the show notes along with the link to the new AI coach, Ballora, who will help you put what you've learned today into action and make real progress in your business. Go to melittacampbell.com/podcast to access all of that content. And as always, if you've had any thoughts, insights, takeaways, or questions, I'd love to hear from you. Connect with me on LinkedIn at Melitta with 2 T's, or drop me a note through my website. Thank you for listening today, and remember, your difference is your strength. I'm Melitta Campbell, your business coach and value whisperer, and I look forward to seeing you again next Wednesday. Bye.